All right, let's talk about the comments that were made yesterday, and well, the Capitol Day. I thought it was a great event. It seemed like one of the better ones for the last few years. Certainly not saying much for the pandemic era, but it was a good get together. When you start talking about, and I know one of the hot spots is going to be the personal income tax. Your take on this?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. Right now is not the time to make radical changes to the tax code. We all know that we've been in the COVID economy. The federal government has sent $1 billion to the state. The federal government sent checks to everybody in the state. We're in a COVID economy. We're facing uncertain times abroad right now. Inflation is coming. We don't need to make radical changes to our tax code in a time like this. I think that's what we ought to sit tight. We ought to invest this money exactly like the Senate has proposed doing in one-time needs like water, sewer, roads, fix the things that need to be fixed and not make changes that could last a generation. So I think we need to sit tight and focus on this one-time money and fix what needs to be fixed.
I know that's the Democrat mantra on this one too, but did you ever forget about the other people who are struggling out there with gas and everything else? I mean, government services are important, don't get me wrong. And from my understanding, over a year and a half, almost 2 years of studying this from a multitude of economists and other people, the House is quite confident that we can give this back to the Mississippi people to help them out a little bit and still have the services we have now.
I just disagree with that. I just disagree with that. I don't think, look, what the House is talking about doing is increasing spending for teacher pay, increasing spending for parks, increasing spending to give state employees a raise, increasing spending for roads and bridges, and taking away a third of the state budget. That's what they're talking about, and it just doesn't add up. Look, we are in a bubble right now. Everybody knows it. Everybody knows that we've got federal government has sent billions of dollars down here to individuals and to the state government, and this is not going to last. And what the conservative thing is,
isn't a little disingenuous to again stay on this these talking points that this was made with the projections made by the House were with all of the additional money, the ARPA funds and everything else from the federal government. When you have somebody from the House on, and even the people who've put this together, they say that's not true. This is a standalone from the growth in the economy itself, and these tax cuts are not based on one-time money. They've said this numerous times, and you disagree with that. But actually, we really need more than just David Blount disagreeing.
Okay, well, let me tell you what the state economist says. What the state economist says is in 8 years, it's going to cost the state $1 billion a year in decreased revenue. And this is coming from the people who want to increase spending for teacher pay, increase spending for parks, increase spending for state employees. And the state economist, who's smarter than you and I are, Paul, is saying it's going to reduce state revenue by $1 billion a year. And we've got to balance the budget. This is different than Washington, D.C. If we're going to increase spending to do these things that we all want to do, that I want to do, we have got to protect recurring revenue.
Is this the same state economist and Corey Miller you're talking about who backtracked on some of his statements? Okay. When he said he did not say
I'm reading the report that came out in February of 2022, which is available on the IHL website. So, you can argue the economist, but again, what I want to say is I think everybody knows this is not the time to be doing this. This is a COVID bubble. If we don't know what's going to happen with inflation. We don't know what's going to happen with this one-time money. We know the federal government's not going to be sending people checks this year. And then we just need to sit tight. We need to balance the budget and fix these things that need to be fixed.
Back up on that. We may not be able to send people checks this year. Explain that.
The federal government sent all the taxpayers in the country, me included, probably you, checks in the mail. We got checks for $2,600 in the mail through the COVID relief, and that went to everybody. And so you saw a massive increase in spending. I'm chairman of the gaming committee. You saw a massive increase in revenue in our state's casinos. And a lot of that,
Yeah.
and all across the business sector, a lot of that came from the federal government sending checks directly to people to go spend, and they spend it. And that is
I think that's a fair statement.
economy.
Yeah. I think it's a
Absolutely,
fair
it's
statement.
a fair statement, and people know
But
that.
were you expecting more checks to continue on a regular basis to come to us?
No, I'm not. I'm not. We should not expect that. And that's why we can't expect the economy in the years to come to be like the economy is right now. We just shouldn't do that.
But I'm sure you're the chairman of gaming. Would you agree that those numbers were continuing to go up prior to those checks being cashed by the American people?
The numbers for gaming revenue in the state?
One more time. Gaming revenues were continuing to go up in the state of Mississippi and were very healthy and getting healthier before the checks were in the mail and started being cashed by the for the pandemic deal.
No, the year, and look, I'm for the gaming industry doing well in the state, but what we learned this week is last year, 2021, was the best year that the gaming industry has had in more than a decade. And a lot of the reason for that, is because people got these checks in the mail and they had some discretionary income and they chose to spend it in that way. And
don't disagree with that.
We all know that's true, and we should not expect the federal government to be sending checks to people anymore. We should not expect the federal government to be sending the state $1.8 billion in the future. Mm-hmm. That's just not going to happen. And so what the Senate is doing, which I think is the right thing to do, is we are recognizing this as one-time money, and we're going to spend it on one-time expenses. We're going to spend it on roads, bridges, water, parks, one-time infrastructure needs. That's what you should do. By the same token, because you have a one-time windfall, and that's what we have right now, it's a one-time windfall, you should not eliminate a recurring source of revenue just because you get a one-time windfall. The income tax is a third of the state budget every single year for the rest of your life and the rest of my life. And just because we have this one-time windfall,
you got to give. We're going to go back and forth on this because we have a delay, but just back and forth, and I'll give you plenty of time to talk. But then I have the question, a lot of people are asking the question here, why the hell did the Senate have a tax relief bill that says it's going to match the House's, it's just going to take longer? Then why spend the money? Why did you guys go out and put a bill together and pass it over for conference if you believe we shouldn't be spending it?
I did not vote for that bill. I didn't vote for the Senate bill. I wouldn't vote for the House bill. This is not the time to be messing with the tax code. The Senate leadership who supported that tax cut bill, they can explain it to you. I didn't vote for it. This is not the time to be making major changes to the tax code, Senate plan, House plan, either one.
Let me give you this before the break here, and I want to squeeze this in because I was listening to the interview on Middays with Gerard when he was questioning the lieutenant governor who was on, and the lieutenant governor stated the House plan is going to take about 20 years or around 20 years to see fulfillment of getting rid of the income tax. And I got to tell you, David, I was a bit perplexed by that because I didn't, as many House members as I've had on, inclusive of the Speaker, I've never heard it would take 20 years. We were always bantering around the figure of about 12 or 12 and a half years. I've asked for a statement from the House on this, if that is true. And I have the answer from the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee that I got late yesterday, and I want to share that answer with you because there are a lot of people talking on both sides and giving conflicting statements. So when we come back, I'll give you the answer I got from Trey Lamar right after this and more from David Blount. I got to go back into your quoting Corey Miller because what Corey Miller also said, the state economy said, he said when you start the tax cut analysis with the current revenue numbers, not a made-up estimate, we will never have less than $600 million more than we are spending now, even after the tax cuts. That's an important statement. Can you hear me?
I don't know what else to say. Yeah, I can hear you, Paul. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to say about all this. I hear what I think you're telling me is that the House is arguing that the full implementation of the tax cut will come sooner than what some folks in the Senate are saying? Is that what you're saying?
What I'm telling you is I'm also quoting the same article that you had, but you left this part out of that the state economist said if you base these on the current revenue numbers, not a made-up estimate, we will never have less than $600 million more than we are spending now after the tax cut. So basically what he is saying, this is based on the state of Mississippi's climate, taxable income. It has continued to grow. The businesses have continued to grow. Has nothing to do with the ancillary funds from the government. So, I mean, that to me is an important statement, which was kind of left out. I do want to get into this one, and I'll let you have all the rest of the time here. In the relationship to the 20 years that the lieutenant governor stated yesterday, I asked Chairman Lamar, was the 20 years a true statement? And he said, this is absolutely false. After the initial cut of raising the exemptions to 40,000 / 80,000, which is the first phase of the House plan, $700 million of individual income tax revenue will be remaining and would still need to be eliminated. The second phase of the plan includes a growth trigger where all of the income over 1.5% growth is used to buy down the remaining income tax revenue. Eliminate the tax incrementally each year. The first 1.5% growth, which is $105 million with $7 billion of revenue, would be used to increase state spending to take care of our needs. Our historical revenue growth is approximately 2.6%, 1% of growth, $70 million. $700 million divided by 70 is 10 years. He's saying we could do this in 10 years, at the outside maybe 12, if we don't have a downturn and those triggers there to safely pull back some of that. They're inclusive in that bill.
So he's saying it gets worse quicker. Well, I don't think that's an endorsement. I mean, I think that, again, what we're talking about is a third of the general fund, and I guess what I interpret from all that, and it's very complicated to read. If your listeners want to get in the weeds, they should go read pages 10 and 11 of House Bill 531 and see if they understand it. I mean, these are the folks who I thought were for making the tax code simple, and there's nothing simple about triggers and uncertainty about not knowing what your taxes are going to be in 10 years. But at the end of the day, whether it's 10 years or 20 years, you're still talking about a third of the state budget. You're still talking about making major changes to the tax code when at a time when we shouldn't be doing it. And I'm against the House plan and I'm against the Senate plan. But to transition, Paul, here's what the main point I want to make this morning, and it deals with the $1.8 billion in ARPA funds that the state has received from the federal government. This is one-time money. And the Senate has released a plan on how we think that money ought to be spent, one-time money on one-time expenses, specifically most of it in the water, also in the buildings, to improving our prison system, to doing infrastructure projects. I have heard it said on your program this week that if we can't get an agreement on this income tax bill, that we're not going to spend any of that money. And if we leave this session without a plan to spend that money, which has a deadline on it, it will be a colossal, historic failure. We have got a deadline on this one-time money. We need to spend it on one-time expenses. We need to get to work.
Excuse me.
We need to spend it on water all across the state, in Jackson and Byram, where I represent, but also all over the state. Rural water associations all over the state desperately need this money. And if we don't help our water systems, they've got one place to go to get that money, and that is to raise rates on the price people pay for water. And that's a tax increase. That's a tax increase.
Let me ask you this. Are you saying that the House is going to hold that hostage until they get what they want, and they've already said that? You said you heard on this program. You said you heard on this program that members of the House who were on this program said that they will do that, or if that's the concern, we ought to do that. There's a big difference between the two. I'll
just say that I am very concerned. Look, the whole way the legislature is supposed to work is you and I may disagree on one bill, Paul, and we fight about it, and then we go to the next bill, and we may agree on the next bill. But we can't hold one bill hostage for the sake of a different bill.
Well, I understand that's against the law and against you. Didn't you take an oath to not do that when you were sworn in?
I did. And
okay.
So
well,
the point I want to make is we need to plan this session to spend this ARPA money on one-time infrastructure needs and get to work. And if we disagree, I say we, the House and Senate leadership, the Democrats and Republicans, whoever. If we disagree about other bills, we just disagree about that. But the ARPA money,
I have one other question.
That's got to be spent and allocated this session.
Listen, tell me one person that says is holding that threat in the House over the Senate who said definitely they're going to work to get that done. Because I'm a little puzzled. I've had several people who, and I think Trey Lamar was probably one of them, said, look, if you're so concerned about a shortcoming, let's just hold some of those monies for protection. That's basically what you've just said. It's no difference.
I mean, I don't want to misunderstand you, Paul, but I mean, I think what I'm talking about is the federal money. I'm not talking about excess state money, which could be used to offset some of this tax cut stuff in the first few years until it's gone. But what I'm talking about is spending this federal money that has a deadline on it, that there are desperate needs for water, for roads, for sewer, and all across this state, and we need to get moving on it. And the Senate has a plan on that, and I hope we can get that done this year.
But you don't know of any House member. Yeah. You don't know of any House member that's left. Just a few seconds, and I'll give it to you. You don't know of any House member that's actually proposing to hold it hostage?
I do not, and I've heard those rumors, and I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but I've heard those rumors, and I just want to emphasize that'd be a terrible mistake. Okay.
I was looking at we have the lowest workforce participation rate in this country, the lowest, 55.8. You go to Minnesota, it's 67.7. We have more people riding the wagon than any other state in the union. And what you're basically seeing is let's not give money back to the other folks who are paying that ride and pulling the wagon. And certainly now we have a time to do it. Your final thoughts here.
Well, if you increase the sales tax, which is what the House plan would do on everybody, retired people and hit harder poor people, if that's what your goal is to milk those people, I don't agree with that. But the problem that you've identified is a huge problem, and I agree with you that it's a problem. We've got to increase the workforce participation rate, and the way you do that, I think, is to invest in education, invest in workforce training at our community colleges, and get people into skilled positions where they can make more money. And I agree with the problem, and I don't know that raising the sales tax on those folks when they're not going to benefit from eliminating taxes.
Listen, that's talking points that are not true. Number one, those people $40,000.
It is true. It is true.
It's not true.
It is
not true.
It is true that raising the sales tax and eliminating
a penny and a half, a penny and a half on a dollar. Am I right?
Eliminating the income tax and raising the sales tax gives the vast majority of the benefit of the cut, the dollar amount of the cut. The more money you make, the more money you save. The less money you make, the more you're hurt. And if you're making $15,000 a year, or you're not paying income tax,
if you're making $15,000, you're not buying a lot of big items on there. The things you're buying is food, and you're forgetting that's cut under both of these plans. So you've made a lot of money there. $40,000 income, for you to be to the point where you negate this, you'd have to buy $86,000 in taxable purchases a year. Those are the true numbers out there. David, I always enjoy having you on because it's always an energetic and active, and look forward to get you back in the studio. Always a good conversation. Appreciate it, sir.
I'm happy to
see you back.